Hello, welcome to Success Tips. So, I'm Dr. April Brown. You don't have to adjust your screen because normally it's Ken Brown, CEO here, or it's Jackie, or it's Carmen. And today they asked me to come on here because the success tips that I'm going to talk about today is what I have been working with people for many, many years. And that is the three keys to mental health. How to be successful with a good mindset, and your mental health is so important to that. It's key. It's a key element of you having success. And so we're going to talk about that today. What are the three keys to good mental health? And so I'm going to introduce myself a little bit. I am Dr. April Brown, and I am Executive Vice President of Coaching here at Destiny Global. And I was a professional counselor for 21 years, and I had my own business or my own practice, and I saw all kinds of people for counseling. I did a lot of marriage. I did a lot of premarital. I did individual. I have worked with teens. I've worked with children. And I have seen a lot of things over those 21 years. I have gone to, when you get your license for professional counseling, you go to get your CEUs, and every year you have to renew that so you can renew your license. And I would go to these every year. I would go for 21 years. I went to a particular one that was like the best one that I could find. It was like American Association of Christian Counselors. And I would go to that and I would hear every single time I would learn a new thing, try to learn a new thing of like how to have better mental health. And I would see clients, and every time I would be like, I really want to help these clients of mine to have breakthrough. And sometimes, like when we're trained in counseling, it is to go back to the past. And when you've had traumas and when you've had different things, you do need to go back to the past. You need to heal those things. But sometimes we have different things that can affect us and affect our mental health and keep us stuck from getting success. And so, what are those things that maybe they don't have to do with trauma? Maybe that, and if you do have a trauma or you do have mental health that you're depressed, you're clinically depressed, where this is over months and months of a period of time where you are severely depressed, where you can't get out of bed, where you are feeling sad more than you're not feeling sad. If you have that, or you have any tendencies to think of any harm towards yourself, then I encourage you that you get counseling, because that is so important that you get that support. You can call a suicide hotline. Get the support that you need. It's so important. And so that's not necessarily what I'm talking about here, because counseling is so important for that. And what happened was I started seeing people that weren't severely depressed, but they still had some mental health things that were going on that they were not able to get out of their stucks in their life. So I started doing, alongside with my counseling, I went to coaching programs to figure out how to help them pass their stucks. And when they were stuck from not being able to get the success that they wanted. And so what I learned through that is really helping people to overcome obstacles, helping them to focus on their goals and to see about their vision. And it's so interesting because when I was a teenager, I wanted to be a counselor since I was 16 years old. What I saw was people would come to me and I basically just listened to them. And they would line up when I was working at a camp for younger girls. They would line up to come talk to me. And I was like, listen, I knew Back then, it wasn't necessarily anything special of like having this special gifting that I could solve all their problems. I was a teenager. I didn't have that ability to know their problems and just to be able to fix their problems. But what I did was I listened to them. I listened to their stories. I listened to them where they felt valued, where they felt validated, okay? Like they felt validated for what they were going through, what their struggles were, and I would just listen to them. And so I started beginning to like, hey, I have something here that I want to help people. I want to truly help people. So that's where I began to know that I wanted to be a counselor. But then I started telling people this, and I started trying to figure out like, how do I become a counselor and all the things that I need to do that, and moving forward to that goal. And so I would talk to people. I talked to like my parents. I talked to youth workers. I talked to all of these people about like what I needed to do to become a counselor. And I was actually raised by a single mom. So some of the obstacles were that whether I would be able to go to college, and how was it going to be able to do that? Then I found out I don't just need to go get my bachelor's, I need to get my master's. That another 2, 3, or 4 years. And how am I going to do that? And so I began, though, to talk to people to understand how I could reach my goals. And I began to see that I also had some leadership gifts in my church, and I started serving and doing the things that would build up my skills. I knew that I needed skills. And so one day I was at church, and a youth pastor came up to me, and he said that somebody he was a director of a counseling center, had come up and he'd asked, hey, do you have anyone in your youth group who like has any desire to be a counselor? You see good leadership skills in them, that they would become a counselor, or want to come do this for me to be like a peer counselor. So he told me, he recommended me to become that. And I was so surprised. I was like, and trying to think back, like, how did I even get recommended for this? And the thing was that I was talking to people about my goal and my dream. And I was seeking out those who could help me to reach my goals and my dreams. So it was really interesting that when I went to go work for this counseling center, and I was a peer counselor, basically what they did with these youth was taught to do, was to help them to look at goals, to help them to look at what do they want to achieve, because if we don't see where there's no vision, the people will perish. And so what I began to see is that sometimes we can get stuck because we don't have hope for the future. We don't have a vision for the future, and so we're not going to do the things we have to be motivated to do the actions that are going to get us to our goals. And if we don't know what those goals are, or we don't have a vision of it, then we're not even going to move towards them. So what I started doing was working with them to like look at their goals, look at how they could achieve those goals, look at like vision. Even before there was a vision board, we started working with like looking at different things that they could look through magazines of what they wanted to do, what they wanted to achieve, and started motivating them towards their goals. And these were troubled teens. And what we started seeing is that I was listening to them. Yes, I was listening to for them to feel validated. But I was also helping them to move towards goals and have a vision for themselves and for their life. And so those two things together of just really validating them and also looking at their vision, looking at their goals and how they're going to achieve what they want to achieve, I saw the impact that it made on their life. And so then I went to college and I studied psychology and studied the brain, right? You studied like all of the physiological stuff of the brain. But a lot of times what was missing was putting all of those things together and understanding how people are wired, how people need a purpose, how people need to know a vision, just as the Bible, the best success book ever written, talks about a vision. Why does it say that? Why does it say without a vision the people will perish? It's because it's so vital for our future. If we don't have that vision of where we're going, just as you put in a GPS of where you're going, you have to know where you're at. You have to know that you're not where you want to go. And you have to put in the GPS of what your destination is. You have to have a vision of that. You have to have a visual of that and the pathway that you go to get there. You have to know and have that trust that the path that you're going on is going to get you to that destination. So those are the things that I really started to see that really helped to elevate their mindsets, helped to elevate their mental health. And what happened was, as I began to go to school and as I began to work with people, I kind of began to see that sometimes with people that hadn't had as much trauma and didn't need to go back there and really heal trauma, but they just didn't have that vision. They just didn't have that understanding of where they were going. And they didn't, and so their mental health, because I believe that we can't have good mental health if we don't have that vision. Let's just take the GPS, for example. Have you ever been frustrated with the GPS? Anybody ever been so frustrated with the GPS? It's taking you the wrong direction and you know it. You're like, I know that this is not the way I'm supposed to go. And you feel so frustrated, right? Like inside of us is dreams and desires. And if what we're doing and the actions that we're taking are not aligned with those dreams and desires inside of us, why would our mind not be frustrated? Just like when we are looking at the GPS and it's not taking us where we want to go, we're going to be frustrated every single time because we have in our mind what we want. We know the values. When we were kids and we had all of these goals and things inside of us, we were so enthusiastic and we had faith of all these things that could happen. And then we begin to lose them. And we also, because of other people and who we're hanging around and what's being spoken into us, we begin to doubt. We begin to question if we can do this. We begin to start putting things in our mind that bring even more doubt and more questions and more frustration because we're not on the path and we're not aligned with who we were designed to be. We're not aligned with our values. And the further distance from where we are to where we see ourselves and our values and who we are, the more frustrated we're going to be. So I want to give you 3 keys for how you can really prioritize. Actually, that's the first one. That is to prioritize your mental health. The 3 keys to good mental health. And the first one is prioritize. Listen, whatever we focus on, we get more of. If we do things that are focusing on not having good mental health, we are not going to have good mental health. It's so important that we do the things that are going to help our mental health. We have to prioritize it. Listen, have you ever heard, and I use this example all the time because I think it's the best example and we hear it all the time. And we don't even think about it. Maybe you have heard about it, but have you really thought about it? When you're on an airplane and they're giving you all of the instructions and they say to put the mask on yourself. Like you could have children, you could have someone that's disabled, you could have your grandmother that you love right there. That is like, you love your grandmother, right? You love your children. If you don't have children, you love your siblings or you love your mother and father. Like you love the people around you, right? But it's like, doesn't that feel selfish? Like, oh my gosh, you're telling me to put the mask on myself before I put it on other people? Why would they tell you that? I want you to think about it. If you're sitting there and you're passed out, you are no good to the people next to you. No good. Your mental health affects other people. You have bad mental health, it affects your family. It affected my family forever. Not forever, for a long time. After having children, and obviously there are things that can happen when you have children, that your hormones go crazy. And I already had, from the time I was 16, I've had hormonal issues. And so it really went wacky when I had children. And so having all these hormonal things going on, and then having children, you're supposed to like take care of them. And the squeaky wheel gets the oil. And so the kids are like screaming, you don't feel like you can prioritize your mental health. So I didn't. I was running around trying to put the oxygen on them while I am passing out. Because I have no oxygen. I have nothing to give. I have nothing to pour into them because I am completely empty. You have to prioritize your mental health. What are those things that are going to help you to have good mental health? You have to prioritize it. And let me tell you, it is usually first thing in the morning. It's usually the first thing in the morning, because what I realized, that if I did not actually, the first thing that you do before you go to bed, of what your thoughts are and what you're doing and prioritizing before you go to bed. What is that routine that you're doing before you go to bed, so that you make sure you get good sleep? You make sure that you're eating well, that you make sure you're doing all of the things that are going to help you with your mental health. With your physical is so connected to your mental. So you're doing the right things, putting the right things in your body, and not putting the bad things in your body. Listen, balance, right? Like you're the 90% of the time you're putting, or even 80% of the time, putting the right things in your body. And sometimes you just have a treat, but it's not having all of the junk all of the time and think you're going to have good mental health and good physical health. So it's prioritizing your mental health. What is that? What are those habits that you do at night to prepare to have a successful good mental health morning? Is what I call it. It's a good mental health morning. And so the last things that you're doing when you're going to bed, and what you're thinking on, not stressed out about what you didn't get done. You have all of these mental like loops that are not closed. You're just sitting there thinking of all the things you didn't get done and your task list, that you made 100 things on that task list that you look at and you know you can't get done within the day, and then you're upset at night because you didn't get all of their tasks done. When you had 100 things on, it's not even physically possible to get those things done. And so you have like this unrealistic expectation of your 24 hours that you have. You have to have realistic expectations of what you can get done within a 24-hour period, and put those into time when you're going to get it done, and not just a general task list that you're just checking stuff off. And so at the end of the day, when you evaluate your day, you're like, I did the best that I could with the 24 hours that I had. And I'm going to increase my skill. I'm going to increase my ability for the next day to even do better. If you are on an airplane and that airplane has a trajectory, and you change that trajectory even slightly, like just so minimal that it doesn't even look like you're changing it, but you're going across the country, like you're from this point and you're going across the country, and let's say that you were going to go to Texas, right, from New York, and then you just change it slightly. Are you still going to go to Texas let's say Dallas, Texas, right? You're going to fly to Dallas, Texas for a future event, creating a dynasty, which I'll talk about more in a minute. But you're in New York, you're going to go to Dallas, Texas, and you just change that trajectory just a little bit. You're no longer going to go to Dallas. You're going to go probably somewhere like LA or something. I don't know officially. I can't tell. I should have looked exactly where you're going to go. If you go 0.1, of a degree, right? You're going to go a completely different direction. Your destination is going to be completely different. And then, so that is what happens every single day when we get up. If we just have one new skill we learn, one new thing that we learn, one thing that we prioritize to make sure that our habits have good mental health, we're going to continue to take that trajectory every single day until you look back that week, not the next day, but the week, and see where you came from. Until the next month, and you see where you came from. And you're continually looking for ways that you can increase your skill, you can increase your mental health ability, and expanding that capacity is so important. Listen, there are studies done that actually mental health and how it affects the workplace. We know it affects the family. You have bad mental health, it's going to affect your family. You come in and you're grumpy, it's affecting your children, it's affecting your husband. You have nothing else to give, it is affecting your family. But let's talk about the workplace. Like, the number one thing in a workplace is burnout. Where you think that the things that you tell that you're going to get done, and you overpromise and you underdeliver. And you're continually overpromising what you can get done, and you're trying to get those done, but you're not really excelling at any of it. You're going to get burnout, because when we're working on a task, we want to see the end of it, and we want to see it come to completion, and we want to see the results of it. And so when we're working on 10 tasks at a time, we're not really completing anything or doing it well. We're not seeing good results come from that. And that's not motivating us. It's not encouraging us. It's not helping us. And then we're not helping all of our coworkers to help them and support them and having good mental health, and we're stressed out. Then we're going to create burnout. And we sign up for all these things, and we say yes, instead of what are those things that are going to be high value, bring high value to my employer, my business. What are those things that are going to bring the high value? And what am I gifted and skilled, and what do I need to delegate? And sometimes our ego gets in the way, and we think that we are the only ones that can do a task, but somebody else probably is more gifted than you are, so you can excel in what you're gifted in, and you can bring the most value with what you're gifted in. So prioritize your mental health. In that morning, you're going to, and I want you to visualize it, that you're not going to go put the oxygen mask on your kids first thing when you get up. What are you going to do before you go get the kids, or you start interacting with anybody? What are those even smallest tangible things that you're going to put the oxygen mask on yourself? You're going to prioritize your mental health. Do you need to go for a walk? Do you need to be physical? Do you need to journal? Do you need to write your wins? The things that are going to help you to have that good mental health. That's what you need to prioritize. And it might just take a short amount of time and have the biggest impact. What is that thing that's going to take the shortest amount of time for you, but have the most impact for yourself and for those around you, so that you can go and then put the oxygen mask on other people? Prioritize your mental health. So this number 2 is you got to own your mental health. So many times we expect the people around us to make us happy, okay? Or we expect that we're going to go to the experts and they're going to give us all the answers. And I'm just here to tell you, even as a mental health expert, that we don't always have all the answers. I know that's not a popular thing for the medical community, whether it's mental health or it's doctors in the medical community for physical health. But you can see that, right? You can see what has happened over the last 3 years, that they don't always have all the answers. And so sometimes we need to sit back and we need to own, how can I own my own physical health and mental health? And just taking the steps that we know. Sometimes it can be so confusing. What are the things that we need to do and the supplements that we need to take and all of these things? I'm not supposed to eat this. I am supposed to eat this, like this diet and that diet, and all of the things can be very confusing. Like supplements that you see for mental health, it can be very confusing. So sometimes we need to step and take back. Did you know that 30 minutes of walking a day outside improves your mental health like over 50%? Let me say that again. It's like in the like over 50. I think it's like 59 or maybe even 60% that it improves your mental health. 30 minutes a day outside walking, it can improve your mental health. So if you just did that, like you don't need the experts for that, like you've got the documentation for that, and we can understand why, like, right? We can own that and we can understand that being outside, outdoors, doesn't it lift your spirits? Doesn't it, if you're going hiking, doesn't that lift your spirits, being outdoors? If you are, and you're walking, you're moving, you're being mobile, doesn't that increase your mental health? Listen, then on top of that, if you're actually walking with someone and you're talking to them and a good friend and you're having support for that, that can increase as well, because you have the community doing it with you and supporting you and holding you accountable to it. So what is going to help you to own your own mental health? The most smallest of things that you can change today, that you can make a priority and commit today that you're going to take ownership of it, that you're not waiting for the Calvary to come to help you with your mental health. You're not waiting for the right person, the right counselor, the right coach. Those things can help you. Getting a coach to help you to reach your goals, that can help you. Getting skills and going to trainings, that can help you. There is also another thing that can help you that is shown in statistically to help you is reading. And so I talked about those things at night that you can do. Reading before you go to bed, it actually relaxes your mind. It gets you off of all of those loops that I talked about that you haven't closed, that you can read a book. Have you ever read a book? Did you start falling asleep? I do it all the time. I'm reading and I'm like, I'm getting into the good stuff, and then like I kind of space out a little bit, and I like, oh wait, I don't remember what I just read, and I have to go back and read it again, or I start falling asleep. I start dozing off. It's relaxing, and it has also been shown to increase your ability to think. So y'all, these are just little adjustments. These are not major things. Can you read 5 minutes a day? 10 minutes a day? I'm not talking about an hour. I'm talking about 5-10 minutes a day that you can do this stuff. All the things that we do, the things that we scroll through our phone, on social media, just scrolling for hours. I think we can take 30 minutes to walk and or 5 to 10 minutes to read at night. This has been a life-changing for me to see some of these things that are helpful. I write my sprouts every single day of all of my wins, because my mind and certain personalities can definitely, there are certain personalities that wake up during the day and they're going to conquer the day. They're like going to conquer everybody in the day. But there are certain personalities that they wake up in the morning and they feel defeated. Okay? They can feel defeated. They can feel like, I don't know about today. I don't know if I'm going to conquer today. And so I particularly have to be very intentional with what I'm looking at and focusing on, not the things that I didn't do right, not the things that didn't get done, but what were those things that I overcame? What were those goals that I set and I actually achieved them? And they could be the smallest little things. Sometimes we want to have the biggest victory, right? We want to think of, we closed 10 people. We got 10 new clients who made, we made this crazy amount of money. But y'all, what did successful people think of all of the things in between that step to the place they're going, to the results that they want? And celebrate those. What is that first step you took that took you out of your comfort zone? What is that first little bitty step that you took that you actually picked up the phone to call somebody and talk to them? And even if it didn't happen at the end where you closed them, that at the beginning you had this nice conversation and you started to feel comfortable. Like those little things that are better than what you did before. That's what I focus on. We do this with our family. We go over what we call sprouts. You can learn that also at Creating a Dynasty, which is where I learned this phenomenal training of how to focus on my wins and what I have achieved and the things that I have gotten done that are towards my goals. And it's been life-changing. I have been doing that ever since I went to my first event of Creating a Dynasty. And Creating a Dynasty is where you get to up-level. You get to scale up in your skills and your abilities. Our first training is First Steps to Success, and we have that in January. That is in Orlando, and that is our first of the trainings. And imagine 2024 starting off with that, of all of these things that I've been telling you. Most of these I've learned from coming to these trainings. And it has been transformational. So you can click the link below to do that for First Steps. Our next level of training is Creating a Dynasty. And that is where you learn to build a legacy. You learn to have all these skills of people skills that is like to a whole different level. And what Destiny Global teaches, that everything is about people skills. If it's not about your product or it's not about your business, it's about people. And if you can get unusually successful with people, you will be unusually successful in your business because it's all about people. So that is for Creating a Dynasty. That's where I learn these skills of how to really hone in on my sprouts, which are just taking that what I just said of your goals and writing them down. I do 5 sprouts a day, and I focus on my gratitude. What are the things that I'm grateful for? We have so much to be grateful for, and we don't focus on those. So those dates are below. You can click below for Creating a Dynasty or First Steps to Success. November 10th through 12th is Creating a Dynasty in Dallas, Texas. And if you've gone to First Steps and you haven't been to Creating a Dynasty, I highly, highly encourage you to come to that. And I want to close this out with our last key, which is to foster your emotional intelligence. And what is emotional intelligence? That is the ability to regulate your own emotions, right? You're not just reacting, you're actually responding. You're learning to respond to what is going on around you and your environment. And is actually having empathy with the other person to understand and listen to them and understand, or at least accept where they're coming from. This is a very important key, because what happens in relationships when we don't have a high emotional IQ, when we don't have the ability to empathize with who we're talking to, when we don't have the ability to regulate our own emotions, we have explosions. And we hurt the other person, and the other person continues to hurt us. instead of being able to talk about and be vulnerable about how we're feeling about something. And I say this all the time, and it's so important that it's not about someone making you feel a certain way. Like, we get to own our own feelings. Nobody makes us feel a certain way. We choose our own feelings. And sometimes we think that's not the case, right? But something can happen to somebody, to one person, and their reaction, their response is different than another person that same thing happens to. Sometimes we think, I'm the only person that this happens to. No, somebody else had a different reaction, a different response, and they have a different relationship with that person because of it. And we can feel like, I'm always at contention with this person because we're continuing to respond to them or react to them, and they're continuing to react from our own reactions, and we get to choose how we feel about it. We get to take a step back. We get to think before we react, and we get to respond and learn to respond in a way that is going to foster the relationship, that's going to foster communication, that's going to foster connection, to be able to give and to receive, that somebody they're going to feel a certain way when we say something. And we might think what we said is not wrong, but that feeling, we get to also empathize with it and say, that wasn't my intention. Or the other person that was hurt gets to say, and they get to apologize, like, that wasn't my intention. I apologize for that. And the other person that reacted to that gets to say, you know what, that really hurt me. When something's said to you, instead of like, going off and like exploding, you can say, that really hurts me when you say that. But we have to be vulnerable with that. And so we have to be in touch with our own emotions and where those might be coming from and what those triggers might be, and working through those and processing them so that we can learn to respond in a different way. So these are the 3 keys to good mental health. I hope that this has helped you. Thank y'all for tuning in to my first time on Success Tips. And please be sure, because I'm serious, you come here every other week, and you hear success tips from Ken Brown, he's the CEO of Destiny Global, but do you know he runs another company that makes millions of dollars? Do you know that he actually has run companies and helped them to go from millions to billions? Do you know that he has experience that I promise you I tune into, and he's my husband? I have watched him over the years and said, man, he's such an amazing leader and business person. And you don't want to miss that. You do not want to miss from Carmen. Every other week, you get these people who have built businesses to millions of dollars, who are also not just that, but learning how to apply all of this into their relationships, into their family relationships and marriages and their children. And you'll hear from Jackie O'Quinn every other week. You will get one of them who is amazing business strategist. And you get to have this amount of time with them every single week. So tune in next time for Success Tips.